Brandon Hayes sat frozen in his chair, watching the woman across from him gather her designer purse and coat with sharp, angry movements. The crystal chandeliers of Bellissimo restaurant cast bright light across the white tablecloth between them, illuminating the untouched appetizers and his humiliation. "You're not what I expected at all," Patricia Donovan said, her voice cutting through the gentle Christmas music playing overhead. "Your profile said you were fun and spontaneous. You're just boring. A workaholic who probably hasn't had an interesting thought in years." Brandon felt heat creep up his neck. Other diners were starting to look their way. The restaurant was packed with couples celebrating Christmas Eve, and here he was, being torn apart by a woman he'd met exactly 30 minutes ago. "I'm sorry you feel that way," he managed to say, his voice tight. "Maybe we just aren't compatible." "Compatible?" Patricia laughed, and it wasn't a kind sound. "Brandon, you spent 20 minutes talking about quarterly reports and business strategies. On Christmas Eve. Do you know how depressing that is? I need someone who knows how to live, not someone who treats every conversation like a board meeting." She stood up, drawing more attention from nearby tables. An elderly couple stopped eating to watch. A family with 2 children stared openly. "Good luck finding someone who can tolerate your incredibly dull life," Patricia added, slinging her coat over her arm. "I'm going to spend my Christmas with people who actually know how to have fun. Maybe you should spend yours with your spreadsheets." With that, she turned and walked out, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. The glass door swung shut behind her, and silence fell across Brandon's section of the restaurant. He could feel dozens of eyes on him. Some people looked away quickly when he glanced up. Others whispered to their companions. Brandon sat very still, staring at the 2 glasses of wine on the table. He'd ordered them both before Patricia arrived, wanting to seem thoughtful and prepared. Now they just looked sad. Everything looked sad. The cheerful red and green decorations hanging from the ceiling seemed to mock him. The couples holding hands around him were painful reminders of his loneliness. He was 42 years old. He'd built a successful tech company from nothing, employed over 300 people and donated millions to charity every year. But he couldn't get through a single dinner date without being called boring. Without being rejected. The worst part was that Patricia wasn't entirely wrong. He did talk about work too much. He did struggle to relax and just be present. After his divorce 5 years ago, he'd thrown himself into his business and forgotten how to connect with people on a personal level. A young woman in a crisp white shirt and black slacks approached his table carefully. She had warm brown skin, kind eyes, and her hair was pulled back in a neat bun. Her name tag read Simone. "Sir, can I get you anything?" she asked gently. Her voice was soft, with none of the pity he'd been dreading. Brandon looked up at her and saw something unexpected in her expression. Not judgment. Not amusement at his public humiliation. Just simple human kindness. "I'm fine, thank you," he said automatically. Simone hesitated, then set down a small plate with a slice of chocolate cake. "This is on the house. Chef's specialty. It's Christmas Eve, and everyone deserves something sweet, especially tonight." Brandon stared at the cake, then at her. "I didn't order this." "I know," Simone said with a small smile. "But I saw what happened and I thought you might need a reminder that not everyone in the world is cruel. Some of us still believe in kindness." She walked away before he could respond, moving to check on another table. Brandon looked down at the cake. It was beautifully presented with a small sprig of mint and a dusting of powdered sugar. Such a simple gesture, but it made his throat tight with emotion. He picked up his fork and took a bite. It was delicious, rich and perfectly balanced. As he ate slowly, he felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. The other diners had gone back to their own meals and conversations. The moment of spectacle had passed. But Brandon couldn't stop thinking about the waitress. About the way she'd offered comfort without making him feel worse. About her words that some people still believed in kindness. When had he stopped believing that? When had he become so isolated that a stranger's small act of compassion could move him this much? He finished the cake and sat back, watching the restaurant around him. Families laughed together. Couples fed each other bites of their meals. A little girl showed her grandfather a drawing she'd made. All this life and love happening around him while he sat alone in the middle of it all. Simone passed by his table again and he caught her eye. "Thank you," he said. "For the cake. And for your kindness." "You're welcome," she replied. "Can I get you anything else? More wine? An entree? We have a special prime rib tonight that's really good." Brandon glanced at his watch. It was only 7:30. He'd planned to leave after Patricia stormed out, to go home to his empty penthouse and pretend this night had never happened. but something made him pause. Actually, yes, he said. I'll have the prime rib, medium rare. And could you recommend a side? Simone's smile widened. The garlic mashed potatoes are amazing. And the roasted vegetables are really fresh tonight. Brussels sprouts with bacon. Perfect. I'll have both. Great choice, Simone said, writing on her pad. I'll put that in right away. As she walked toward the kitchen, Brandon realized he was actually looking forward to dinner now. Not because the food would be exceptional, though he was sure it would be, but because staying here in this warm restaurant with its bright lights and happy people felt better than going home alone. And maybe, just maybe, he'd get to talk to the kind waitress again. The one who'd reminded him that goodness still existed in the world, even on the worst Christmas Eve of his life. Would you give up on love after being humiliated like Brandon was? Sometimes the people who show up in our darkest moments are the ones who change everything. If this story is touching your heart, subscribe and let me know in the comments what you would have done in Brandon's situation. Your support means the world to this channel. Simone returned with Brandon's dinner 20 minutes later, setting the plates before him with practiced grace. The prime rib looked perfect and steam rose from the mashed potatoes. The vegetables were arranged beautifully, the Brussels sprouts glistening with just the right amount of glaze. This looks wonderful, Brandon said. Thank you. Enjoy, Simone replied, turning to leave. Wait, Brandon said quickly. She paused and looked back at him. I know this is probably unusual, but would you mind talking with me for a moment? When you have time, of course. I don't want to get you in trouble. Simone glanced around the restaurant. The dinner rush had slowed down, and the other servers were handling their sections well. I can spare a minute, she said. Is everything okay with your meal? The meal is perfect. Brandon paused, searching for the right words. I wanted to thank you again. For what you did earlier. You didn't have to do that. Simone's expression softened. It was just cake. No, it was more than that. It was kindness when I needed it most. That matters. She studied him for a moment, then pulled out the chair across from him and sat down, glancing toward the kitchen to make sure the manager wasn't watching. I've been where you were tonight, she said quietly. Different circumstances, but that same feeling. Like you're completely alone and everyone is watching you fail. It's the worst. What happened? Brandon asked. Simone looked down at her hands. About 3 years ago I had a boyfriend. We'd been together for 2 years and I thought he was the one. He proposed to me at a restaurant, got down on one knee in front of everyone. I said yes. Everyone clapped. She paused, her voice growing softer. 2 weeks later, I found out he'd been seeing someone else for most of our relationship. When I confronted him, he told me he'd only proposed because his parents were pressuring him to settle down, and I seemed convenient. That's terrible, Brandon said, genuine sympathy in his voice. I'm sorry. Thank you. It broke something in me for a while. Made me question everything about myself. But eventually, I realized his cruelty said everything about him and nothing about me. Same as that woman tonight. Her words say everything about who she is, not who you are. Brandon cut into his prime rib, thinking about her words. You're very wise. Simone laughed, a light sound that made him smile. I don't know about wise. Just experienced in heartbreak, maybe? Are you still? Brandon hesitated. Do you have anyone now? No. I haven't dated since then. Too busy, honestly. And maybe a little scared to try again. She glanced at the kitchen. I should get back to work. Of course. But before you go, can I ask what keeps you so busy? Simone stood up and tucked her notepad back into her apron pocket. I work 2 jobs. Here at night and at a coffee shop during the day. My younger brother, Tyler, is in college studying engineering. Our parents died 4 years ago, car accident, so it's just us now. I take care of his tuition and living expenses. Brandon set down his fork, studying her with new respect. That's incredibly generous. You're raising him and putting him through school? He's all the family I have. And he's brilliant. He deserves every opportunity. Simone smiled, but Brandon could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Plus, I'm taking night classes myself when I can. Business administration. Slow going, but I'll get there eventually. That's remarkable, Brandon said. Really? Most people wouldn't take on that kind of responsibility. Simone shrugged. Family takes care of family. That's how it should be. A loud crash came from the kitchen and Simone jumped. I really need to go. Enjoy your dinner. She hurried away, leaving Brandon alone with his thoughts and his meal. He ate slowly, processing everything she told him. Here was a woman working herself to exhaustion for her brother's future while pursuing her own education at the same time. And she'd still found the energy and compassion to comfort a stranger having a bad night. When Brandon finished his meal, he asked for the check. Simone brought it over in a leather folder, setting it discreetly by his elbow. "Was everything to your satisfaction?" she asked professionally. Everything was perfect, especially the company, brief as it was. Simone blushed slightly and smiled. Brandon opened the folder and placed his credit card inside without looking at the total. When Simone returned with the receipt, he added a tip that made him feel slightly less pathetic about his evening. $500. He stood up and put on his coat, a dark gray wool that probably cost more than Simone made in a month. As he turned to leave, he saw her looking at the receipt, her eyes wide with shock. She rushed over to him, keeping her voice low. "Sir, Mr. Hayes, you made a mistake. This tip is..." "Not a mistake," Brandon interrupted gently. "You gave me something valuable tonight. Let me give you something in return." "I can't accept this. It's too much." "You can and you will. Use it for your brother's books next semester. Or take yourself to dinner somewhere nice. Or put it toward your own tuition." He smiled at her. "You told me family takes care of family. Well, tonight you treated a stranger like family. That deserves recognition." Simone's eyes filled with tears and she blinked rapidly. "I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you so much." Brandon pulled a business card from his wallet and handed it to her. "If you ever need anything, call me. I mean that. A job reference, career advice, or just someone to talk to. You helped me tonight more than you know." Simone took the card, looking at it with wonder. "Hayes Technology Solutions. You're that Brandon Hayes? The CEO?" "Guilty," he said with a small smile. "Though tonight I'm just a guy who got stood up on Christmas Eve and met someone who reminded him that good people still exist." "I had no idea," Simone whispered, still staring at the card. "Good. That means you were kind to me because of who you are, not because of who I am. That's rare and precious." Brandon buttoned his coat. "Merry Christmas, Simone. Thank you for making this night better." "Merry Christmas, Mr. Hayes." "Brandon, please. Mr. Hayes is what my employees call me." He walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. Simone was still standing by his table, holding his business card like it was something sacred. "Simone?" he called across the restaurant. She looked up. "You're going to do great things. I can tell. Don't give up on your dreams and don't let anyone make you feel small. You're worth so much more than you probably believe." Then he pushed through the glass door and stepped out into the cold December night. Snow was falling gently, covering the city in a blanket of white. The streets were quieter than usual, most people already home with their families. Brandon stood on the sidewalk for a moment, breathing in the crisp air. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from his business partner, Jeffrey Mills. "How'd the date go? Please tell me you didn't talk about work the whole time." Brandon smiled sadly and typed back, "Date was a disaster. But I met someone interesting anyway. Tell you about it later. Merry Christmas, Jeffrey." As he walked toward where his driver was waiting, Brandon thought about Simone's smile. About her strength and kindness. About the way she'd sat with him and shared her own pain to make him feel less alone. Maybe Patricia had been right about one thing. Maybe he had become too focused on work, too disconnected from real human connection. But tonight had reminded him what he'd been missing. Genuine warmth. Authentic conversation. Someone who saw him as a person, not as a bank account or a business opportunity. He climbed into the back of his car and told his driver to take him home. As the city lights blurred past the window, Brandon found himself hoping he'd see Simone again. Not because he wanted to impress her or pursue her romantically, at least not yet. But because she'd made him feel human again, and that was a gift he wouldn't soon forget. 3 days after Christmas, Brandon sat in his office on the 45th floor of Hayes Technology Solutions, staring at Simone's contact information on his computer screen. He'd gotten it from the restaurant manager, explaining that he wanted to follow up on an employment opportunity. It wasn't entirely a lie. He did want to offer her a job. He also just wanted to see her again. His office was all glass and steel, minimalist and efficient. The walls were covered with awards and framed magazine covers featuring him. Forbes, Fortune, Tech Innovator Monthly. All the markers of success that meant nothing when you went home to an empty apartment every night. Jeffrey knocked on his open door and walked in without waiting for permission. At 55, Jeffrey was the closest thing Brandon had to family. They'd started the company together 15 years ago, and Jeffrey knew him better than anyone. "You've been distracted since Christmas," Jeffrey said, settling into the leather chair across from Brandon's desk. "Want to talk about it?" Brandon closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. I met someone. Jeffrey's eyebrows rose. The disaster date? No. The waitress who served me after the disaster date. Brandon proceeded to tell Jeffrey the whole story. Patricia's cruel departure, Simone's kindness, their conversation, her situation with her brother. When he finished, Jeffrey was smiling. So call her. Ask her out properly. I don't want to put her in an awkward position. She might feel obligated because of who I am. Or she might say yes because she genuinely likes you, Jeffrey pointed out. You'll never know if you don't try. Brandon picked up his phone, hesitated, then set it down again. What if she thinks I'm using my money to manipulate her? The tip I left was substantial. She might think I'm trying to buy her attention. Then be honest. Tell her you're interested in getting to know her better with no expectations. See what happens. Jeffrey stood up. Brandon, you've been alone for 5 years. You deserve to be happy. And from what you've told me, this woman sounds special. After Jeffrey left, Brandon sat in his office for another hour, working up the courage. Finally, he picked up his phone and dialed Simone's number. She answered on the third ring. Hello? Simone? This is Brandon Hayes. We met on Christmas Eve at Bellissimo. There was a pause, then her warm voice filled his ear. Mr. Hayes, Brandon. I didn't expect to hear from you. I hope I'm not overstepping. I wanted to check in and see how you're doing. And to make an offer if you're interested. An offer? She sounded curious, not suspicious. I know you're working toward a degree in business administration. My company has an internship program that provides hands-on experience while you complete your education. We offer flexible hours, competitive pay, and full tuition reimbursement. I'd like to offer you a position if you're interested. Simone was quiet for so long that Brandon worried she'd hung up. Then she said, Why would you do this for me? You don't know me. I know enough. I know you're hardworking, intelligent, and determined. I know you're sacrificing your own dreams to support your brothers. Those are exactly the qualities I look for in people I want on my team. This feels like too much. You already gave me that incredibly generous tip. Simone, let me be direct. I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. What I don't have is enough people around me who are genuine and kind. You reminded me that those people exist. Let me help you achieve your goals. You'd be earning this position. I'm not giving you charity. I'm giving you an opportunity. Another long pause. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. But Simone, I hope you say yes. Not just for the job, but because I'd really like to get to know you better. As friends at least. No pressure beyond that. You want to be friends with your intern? She sounded amused. I want to be friends with a remarkable person who showed me kindness when I needed it most. The fact that you'd also be working for my company is just convenient. Simone laughed and the sound made Brandon smile. Okay, I'll think about it. Can I call you back in a few days? Absolutely. Oh, and Simone? There's one more thing. My company is hosting a charity event next week. A fundraiser for educational scholarships. I'd love it if you and your brother could attend as my guests. No strings attached. Just good food, music, and the chance to meet some interesting people. Tyler might even make some connections that could help his career. You're really persistent, aren't you? When I see something valuable, I don't let it slip away. That's how I built my company. It's also how I'm trying to build a friendship with you. Simone sighed, but it was a happy sound. Fine. We'll come to your event. But I'm warning you, I don't have anything fancy to wear to a charity gala. I'll have my assistant send over some options for you to choose from. Different sizes, different styles. Keep whatever you like, return the rest. This is standard for all our guests who need formal wear. Please don't argue with me about this. You really don't take no for an answer. Not when I know I'm right. Say yes, Simone. To the event, to the job, to being my friend. Let me help you. You'd be doing me a favor, honestly. I need more genuine people in my life. There was warmth in her voice when she replied. Okay. Yes to the event. And yes to thinking seriously about the job. As for friendship, I guess we'll see how the event goes. That's all I can ask for. Thank you. After they hung up, Brandon felt lighter than he had in years. He'd been honest with Simone about needing genuine people in his life. What he hadn't told her was that he couldn't stop thinking about her. About her smile, her strength, her kindness. He wasn't sure what he was feeling yet. It was too soon to call it attraction and definitely too soon to call it anything deeper. But it was something. Something warm and hopeful that he hadn't felt since before his divorce. He picked up his phone again and called his assistant, Rachel. I need you to contact several boutiques and have them send formal wear options to this address. Women's wear, sizes 6 through 10, different styles. Also, send a car to pick up Simone Parker and her brother Tyler Parker next Friday at 6 p.m. They'll need transportation to the gala. Of course, Mr. Hayes. Anything else? Yes. I want you to set up a meeting with HR about creating a new internship position. I have a specific candidate in mind, and I want to make sure the program structure is perfect before we make the formal offer. As Brandon ended the call, he looked out his office window at the city below. Snow covered the streets, and people hurried along the sidewalks bundled in coats and scarves. Somewhere out there, Simone was probably at her coffee shop job, serving customers with the same kindness she'd shown him. Or maybe she was at home with Tyler, helping him with his studies. Whatever she was doing, Brandon hoped she'd accept his offer. Not just because he wanted to help her, though he did, but because he had a feeling that letting Simone into his life might be the best decision he'd ever make. His phone buzzed with a text from Jeffrey. "Did you call her?" Brandon typed back, "Yes. She's thinking about it. We'll see her at the gala next week." Jeffrey's response came immediately, "Good. Don't mess this up. Real connections are rare. Hold on to this one." Brandon smiled and tucked his phone away. He wasn't planning to mess anything up. For the first time in 5 years, he had something to look forward to beyond work. Something that made him feel alive and hopeful and human. And it had all started with a piece of chocolate cake and a kind word on the worst Christmas Eve of his life. The following Friday evening, Simone stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress she'd chosen from the selection Brandon's assistant sent over was a deep emerald green, elegant without being too formal. It hugged her curves in all the right places, and the color made her brown skin glow. Her hair was styled in soft curls that cascaded over her shoulders, and she'd applied just enough makeup to feel confident without feeling like she was wearing a mask. "Wow, sis," Tyler said from her bedroom doorway. "You look amazing." Simone turned to look at her brother. At 20, Tyler was tall and lean, with their father's warm eyes and their mother's infectious smile. He wore a sharp navy blue suit that Brandon's team had included in the package. He looked grown up and handsome, nothing like the gangly teenager she'd been raising for the past 4 years. "You clean up pretty well yourself," Simone said, walking over to adjust his tie. "Remember, tonight is about networking. Be polite, ask questions, and if anyone offers you their business card, take it." I know, Tyler said, grinning. "You've told me 100 times. I promise I won't embarrass you." "You could never embarrass me. I'm so proud of you, Ty. Mom and Dad would be too." Tyler's expression grew serious. "Do you think this is weird? This guy we barely know inviting us to a fancy event and offering you a job?" "Honestly? A little," Simone admitted. "But I've looked into him. Hayes Technology Solutions has an excellent reputation. Their employee reviews are outstanding. And when I talked to him on the phone, he seemed genuine. I think he really just wants to help." "Or he likes you," Tyler suggested with a knowing look. Simone felt her cheeks warm. "Don't be ridiculous. Men like Brandon Hayes don't fall for waitresses they meet one time." "Why not? You're smart, beautiful, kind, and you make a mean cup of coffee. Any guy would be lucky to have you." A car horn honked outside. Simone grabbed her small clutch purse and took a deep breath. "That's our ride. Ready?" "Born ready." The car Brandon sent was a sleek black sedan with a professional driver who opened their doors and treated them like royalty. As they drove through the city toward the event venue, Simone felt butterflies in her stomach. She'd never been to anything like this before. What if she said the wrong thing? What if she used the wrong fork at dinner? What if people could tell she didn't belong? The venue was a historic mansion that had been converted into an event space. White lights were strung through the bare winter trees, and the windows glowed warmly from inside. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway, and people in expensive clothes walked up the stone steps to the entrance. "This is incredible," Tyler whispered as they climbed out of the car. A doorman welcomed them and checked their names against a list. Inside, the mansion was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. Oil paintings and gilt frames covered the walls. Servers moved through the crowd offering champagne and appetizers. Classical music played from a string quartet in the corner. Simone felt completely out of her depth, but then she saw Brandon across the room, and his whole face lit up when their eyes met. He excused himself from the group he was talking to and walked straight toward her. "Simone," he said, taking her hand, "you look absolutely beautiful." "Thank you. You remember my brother Tyler?" "Of course. Tyler, good to see you again. That suit looks great on you." Brandon shook Tyler's hand firmly. "I want to introduce you both to some people. Come on." For the next hour, Brandon guided them through the party, introducing them to business leaders, technology innovators, and philanthropists. Every introduction, he made a point to mention Simone's work ethic and intelligence, or Tyler's engineering studies and academic achievements. He never made them feel less than anyone else in the room. Simone found herself talking to a woman named Dr. Adrienne Foster, who ran a nonprofit that provided technology training to underserved communities. They had an engaging conversation about education access and socioeconomic barriers. Meanwhile, Brandon introduced Tyler to several engineers and executives who worked in fields related to his studies. Simone watched her brother's face light up as he talked about his recent projects and asked intelligent questions about their work. During dinner, they sat at Brandon's table along with Jeffrey Mills and his wife, Patricia, 3 other executives and their partners. The conversation flowed easily, covering everything from current events to travel stories to funny childhood memories. "So how did you and Brandon meet?" asked Patricia Mills, an elegant woman in her 60s wearing a red dress and a warm smile. Simone glanced at Brandon, unsure how to answer. He smiled and said, "Simone rescued me from the worst date of my life on Christmas Eve. I was ready to give up on humanity and she reminded me that kind people still exist." "That sounds like quite a story," Jeffrey said. "It is," Brandon agreed. "I'd been stood up, essentially. Publicly humiliated. And Simone brought me chocolate cake and said something I really needed to hear. That some people still believe in kindness." "Good for you," Patricia Mills said, looking at Simone with approval. "The world needs more people who lead with compassion." "I was just doing my job," Simone said modestly. "You were doing more than your job," Brandon corrected gently. "You saw someone hurting and you chose to help. That's character, not job performance." As dinner wound down and people moved to the ballroom for dancing, Brandon turned to Simone. "Would you like to dance?" "I'm not a very good dancer," Simone warned. "Neither am I. But I'd like to try anyway if you're willing." They walked to the dance floor where other couples were already swaying to the music. Brandon placed one hand on her waist and took her hand with the other, and they began to move slowly to the soft melody. "Thank you for coming tonight," Brandon said. "Having you here made this event actually enjoyable for me." "Really? Don't you usually enjoy these things?" "Honestly? No. I usually find them exhausting. Making small talk, pretending to be interested in conversations about stock portfolios and vacation homes. But tonight was different. Seeing everything through your eyes, watching Tyler connect with people who can help his career, that made it meaningful." Simone looked up at him. "You're a good person, Brandon Hayes. Not everyone with your resources would use them to help others the way you do. I had help getting where I am. A teacher who believed in me when no one else did. A mentor who took a chance on a kid from a poor neighborhood. I'm just paying it forward." "You grew up poor?" "Poorest of the poor. My dad left when I was 6. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in the worst part of town. I wore the same shoes for 3 years because we couldn't afford new ones." Brandon's voice was matter-of-fact, no self-pity in it. "A high school teacher named Mr. Peterson saw something in me. He pushed me to apply for scholarships, helped me with applications, even bought me a suit for my college interviews. Without him, I'd probably still be in that neighborhood, working dead-end jobs." "What happened to him?" "He passed away 10 years ago. But I named the scholarship program at my company after him. The Peterson Scholars Fund. We've sent over 200 kids to college so far." Simone felt tears prick her eyes. "That's beautiful. It's important. Breaking cycles of poverty, giving people opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have. That's what matters to me. Not money or power or status. Just helping people reach their potential." The song ended and another began. They kept dancing, neither wanting to break the connection they'd found. Around them, other couples twirled and laughed, but Simone was only aware of Brandon. The way he looked at her like she was the only person in the room. The gentleness of his touch. The sincerity in his voice. "Simone," Brandon said quietly, "I need to tell you something. The job offer is real. But I also asked you here tonight because I wanted to spend time with you. I'm interested in getting to know you better. As more than just a friend, if you're open to that." Simone's heart raced. "Brandon, I appreciate everything you've done for Tyler and me. But I'm not interested in being someone's project. If you're offering me these things because you pity me or because you want something from me—" "No," Brandon interrupted firmly. "That's not what this is. I'm offering you opportunities because you've earned them. Your work ethic, your intelligence, your character, those are worth investing in. And I'm being honest about my feelings because I don't want to pretend they don't exist. But if you're not interested, nothing changes." The job offer stands regardless. The help with Tyler's education stands regardless. I'm not that kind of person. Simone studied his face, looking for any sign of dishonesty. She saw only openness and hope. I need time. This is all happening so fast and I don't want to make a mistake. Take all the time you need, Brandon said. I'm patient. And I'm not going anywhere. They danced until the song ended, then Brandon walked her back to where Tyler was talking animatedly with a group of young professionals. Her brother looked happier than she'd seen him in years. As the night wound down and Brandon walked them to their car, he handed Simone an envelope. This has the formal job offer details. Read through it, think about it, discuss it with Tyler. Call me when you're ready to talk. Thank you for tonight, Simone said. For everything. This was magical. Thank you for giving me a chance. For trusting me enough to come. Brandon smiled at Tyler. And you, young man, you impressed a lot of people tonight. I heard Dr. Chin from Quantum Dynamics offering you a summer internship. Tyler's eyes widened. He was serious about that? Very serious. He said you were one of the most promising students he'd talked to in years. You should follow up with him. In the car on the way home, Tyler couldn't stop talking about the people he'd met and the conversations he'd had. Simone listened with half her attention, the other half replaying her dance with Brandon. The way he'd held her. The things he'd said. The honesty in his eyes when he admitted he wanted to know her better. She'd spent 3 years building walls around her heart, protecting herself from being hurt again. But Brandon was making her want to tear those walls down. He was making her want to hope again, to believe that good things could happen to people like her. Earth to Simone, Tyler said, waving his hand in front of her face. You okay? Yeah, Simone said, smiling. I'm good. Really good. That night, lying in bed, Simone read through the job offer. The salary was more than both her current jobs combined. The benefits were excellent. The hours were flexible enough to accommodate her classes. It was everything she needed and more than she dared to dream of. But it wasn't the job offer that kept her awake. It was the memory of Brandon's hand on her waist, his voice in her ear, his confession that he wanted to know her better. It was the realization that she wanted to know him better too. She picked up her phone and typed a message. Thank you again for tonight. I'd like to discuss the job offer soon. And Brandon? I'd like to get to know you better too. Let's see where this goes. She hit send before she could change her mind, then waited, her heart pounding. 3 minutes later, her phone buzzed with his response. Best message I've received in years. Coffee tomorrow? My treat. And yes, I know you make coffee for a living, but let someone else make it for you for once. Simone smiled in the darkness and typed back, coffee sounds perfect. As she finally drifted off to sleep, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Pure, simple hope that maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change in the best possible way. The coffee date turned into a 3-hour conversation. Then Brandon invited Simone to a museum opening the following week. Then they started meeting for lunch every few days. After a month, Simone accepted the job at Hayes Technology Solutions, giving notice at both her other positions. Her first day at the company was overwhelming. The building was state-of-the-art, with open-concept workspaces, collaborative meeting areas, and amenities that seemed almost too good to be true. There was a cafeteria with subsidized gourmet food, a gym, a meditation room, and even a daycare center for employees with children. Rachel, Brandon's assistant, showed Simone to her workspace. It was a bright cubicle with a view of the city, a new computer, and a welcome basket filled with company merchandise and snacks. Mr. Hayes wanted to make sure you had everything you need, Rachel said. If you need anything else, just let me know. I'm here to support all the interns and new hires. This is amazing, Simone said, looking around. Thank you. Her supervisor was a woman named Carol Davidson, the head of the business development department. Carol was in her 50s, sharp and efficient, with a no-nonsense attitude that Simone appreciated. You're here to learn, Carol told her during their first meeting. I don't expect you to know everything. I expect you to ask questions, work hard, and bring fresh perspectives. Brandon speaks very highly of you, but you'll still need to prove yourself. Understood. Understood, Simone said. I'm ready to work. And work she did. Simone threw herself into her new role, arriving early and staying late. She learned quickly, absorbing information about market analysis, client relations, and strategic planning. Carol gave her increasingly complex projects, and Simone tackled each one with determination. Brandon kept his distance during work hours, treating her the same as any other intern. But after work, their relationship continued to develop. They went to art galleries and concerts, They tried new restaurants and walked through parks. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing their dreams and fears and hopes for the future. One evening, 6 weeks after Simone started at the company, Brandon took her to dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant. Over pasta and wine, he asked, "How are you finding the work? Is it what you expected?" "It's better than I expected," Simone said honestly. "Carol is tough but fair. I'm learning so much. And the other interns have been really welcoming. There's this guy, Jordan, who's been helping me understand the technical side of things." "Jordan Miller? Is good. One of our top performers. Everyone there is good. Sometimes I worry I don't measure up." Brandon reached across the table and took her hand. "You more than measure up. Carol told me yesterday that you're the best intern she's had in 5 years. She wants to offer you a permanent position when you graduate." Simone's eyes widened. "Really? Really? You've earned it, Simone. This has nothing to do with me and everything to do with your talent and work ethic." Simone felt warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you for believing in me. For giving me this chance. Thank you for taking it. And for letting me into your life." Brandon squeezed her hand gently. "I know we've been taking things slow and I've appreciated that. But I need you to know how I feel. I'm falling for you, Simone. Maybe I've been falling since the moment you brought me that chocolate cake. You've brought light back into my life. You've reminded me what it means to connect with someone real." Simone felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm falling for you too. It scares me a little. After what happened with my ex, I promised myself I'd never let anyone have that kind of power over me again. But you're different. You're kind and genuine and you see me as a whole person, not just as someone to use or control. I would never use you or control you. You're too important to me." They finished their dinner and walked through the city streets hand in hand. The spring air was mild, carrying the scent of flowers from nearby gardens. Street musicians played on corners and couples strolled past them, lost in their own worlds. "Can I tell you something?" Simone asked. "Tyler has been asking when he can officially call you his brother-in-law." Brandon laughed. "Has he now? He adores you. You've done so much for him. That internship with Dr. Chen has been incredible. He's learning cutting-edge engineering techniques, and Dr. Chen keeps telling him he has a permanent job waiting when he graduates. Tyler earned that on his own merit. I just made the introduction. You've changed both our lives. I don't know how to thank you." Brandon stopped walking and turned to face her. They were standing under a streetlight, surrounded by the sounds of the city. "Be happy. That's all the thanks I need. Be happy and keep being the amazing person you are." He leaned down and kissed her gently. It was their first kiss, sweet and careful, full of promise. When they pulled apart, Simone was smiling. "I am happy," she whispered. "Happier than I've been in years." Over the next few months, their relationship deepened. Simone met Jeffrey and Patricia Mills regularly, and they welcomed her into their circle with genuine warmth. Brandon spent time with Tyler, attending his engineering presentations and taking him to basketball games. One Saturday in June, Brandon invited Simone and Tyler to his penthouse for the first time. The space was beautiful but impersonal, filled with expensive furniture but lacking any sense of home. "This place is huge," Tyler said, exploring the rooms. "Too huge for one person," Brandon admitted. "I bought it after my divorce thinking it would make me feel successful. But it just feels empty most days." Simone walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the city below. "It has potential. It just needs personal touches. Photos, art, things that reflect who you are." "Maybe you could help me with that sometime," Brandon suggested. "I'm not good at the whole decorating thing." "I'd love to." They spent the afternoon together, cooking dinner in Brandon's professional-grade kitchen. Tyler and Brandon bonded over their shared love of grilling, while Simone made side dishes and laughed at their competitive banter about who made the best burgers. After dinner, Tyler excused himself to study in one of the guest rooms, leaving Brandon and Simone alone on the balcony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I've been thinking," Brandon said, putting his arm around Simone's shoulders. "I want you to meet my mother. She lives in Florida now, retired and happy. But she's the most important person in my life, and I'd like her to meet you." "I'd be honored," Simone said, leaning into him. "She's going to love you. She's always telling me I work too hard and don't make time for relationships. When I told her about you, she said it was about time I found someone worth making time for." "No pressure then," Simone joked. "She'll love you," Brandon repeated. "How could she not?" As darkness fell over the city, they stood together on the balcony, planning a trip to Florida and talking about the future. For the first time in years, Both of them could imagine a future that included another person. A future built on trust, respect, and growing love. Inside, Tyler finished his studying and came back to find them. "Hey Brandon? I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for Simone and me. You didn't have to help us, but you did. You've changed our lives." Brandon stood up and walked over to Tyler, putting a hand on his shoulder. "You're family now. Family takes care of family. Isn't that what your sister taught you?" Tyler's eyes grew bright with emotion. "Yeah. That's exactly what she taught me." The three of them stood together on the balcony, watching the city lights come on below. They were building something real and lasting. Something none of them had expected but all of them needed. A family chosen and cherished. Built on kindness, hope, and love. Summer arrived, bringing long days and warm evenings that Simone and Brandon spent exploring the city together. They were officially a couple now, and while they kept their relationship professional at work, everyone at Hayes Technology Solutions knew they were together. The office response had been overwhelmingly positive. People seemed happy that their boss, who they'd always found kind but distant, had finally found someone who made him smile. One Friday evening in July, Brandon picked up Simone from work for their first official weekend getaway. He'd planned a trip to a lake house 2 hours north of the city, a place he'd rented for the entire weekend. "A whole weekend?" Simone had said when he first suggested it. "Brandon, that's a lot." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. We both need a break. No work, no obligations, just time together." Now, as they drove through the countryside with the windows down and music playing, Simone felt more relaxed than she had in months. She'd worked hard at Hayes Technology, proving herself to Carol and the rest of the team. Her classes were going well. Tyler was thriving in his internship. Everything in her life was falling into place in ways she'd never imagined. The lake house was beautiful, a modern cabin with huge windows overlooking the water. The interior was decorated in warm wood tones and comfortable furniture. A deck extended out over the lake with chairs perfect for watching the sunset. "This is perfect," Simone said, setting down her bag and walking to the windows. "Brandon, this is too much." "Nothing is too much for you," he replied, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "I want to give you beautiful experiences. You've spent so many years working yourself to exhaustion, taking care of everyone else. Let me take care of you for a change." They spent the evening cooking dinner together, laughing as Brandon struggled to cut vegetables evenly and Simone teased him about his lack of kitchen skills. "I can run a technology company, but I can't dice an onion properly," Brandon grumbled. "This seems unfair." "Everyone has their strengths," Simone said, kissing his cheek. "Yours just happen to be in boardrooms rather than kitchens." After dinner, they sat on the deck with glasses of wine, watching the stars come out over the lake. The air was warm and smelled of pine trees. Somewhere across the water, someone was playing guitar. "Tell me about your marriage," Simone said quietly. "You've mentioned your divorce, but you've never really talked about it." Brandon was silent for a moment, then said, "Her name was Jennifer. We met at a tech conference 15 years ago. She was brilliant, ambitious, beautiful. We got married within a year. For a while it was good. But as the company grew, I became more focused on work. And Jennifer became more focused on the lifestyle my success provided." He took a sip of wine and continued. "By the end, we were strangers living in the same house. She wanted more of my attention, and I couldn't figure out how to give it to her without sacrificing the business. She had an affair with one of my competitors. When I found out, I was angry, but I wasn't surprised. We'd stopped being partners long before she cheated." "I'm sorry," Simone said, taking his hand. "Don't be. The divorce was the best thing for both of us. Jennifer is married to that guy now, and from what I hear, they're happy. And I learned something important. Success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. I spent 5 years alone, building more wealth and more influence, and none of it made me happy. Then I met you, and suddenly everything made sense again." "You make me happy too," Simone said. "Happier than I ever thought I could be after what happened with my ex. You've shown me that not all men are selfish or cruel. That some people actually mean what they say." Brandon turned to face her fully. "I want you to know something, Simone. Whatever happens between us, I'll never hurt you intentionally. If I mess up, if I make mistakes, it won't be because I don't care. It'll be because I'm human and flawed. But I care about you more than I've cared about anyone in a very long time. You and Tyler, you've become my family." Simone felt tears slip down her cheeks. "We feel the same way. Tyler was asking me the other day if we were going to get married. He said he'd be proud to have you as a brother-in-law." "What did you tell him?" "I told him we're taking things one day at a time. But that if things continue the way they're going, he might get his wish." Brandon smiled and wiped away her tears with his thumb. One day at a time sounds perfect to me. They spent Saturday morning kayaking on the lake, racing each other and laughing when Simone beat Brandon to the small island in the middle of the water. They ate lunch on the deck, then took a long walk through the forest surrounding the property. I never did stuff like this growing up, Brandon said as they walked hand in hand down a trail. No family vacations, no weekend getaways. We were too poor and my mom was always working. I remember other kids at school talking about their trips to the beach or the mountains, and I'd make up stories about places I'd been just to fit in. I understand that, Simone said. My parents tried to give us experiences when they could, but money was tight. Most of our vacations were to my aunt's house 3 hours away. Tyler doesn't remember those times well. He was so young when they died. You've done an incredible job raising him. He's a good kid. Smart, polite, ambitious. That's all because of you. He makes it easy. He's always been a good kid. Even when things were hardest, he never complained. He just worked harder. That evening, they cooked steaks on the outdoor grill and watched the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and red. As darkness fell, they moved inside and built a fire in the stone fireplace. Brandon, Simone said as they cuddled on the couch. Can I ask you something? Anything. What are we building here? Where do you see this going? Brandon was quiet for a moment, then said, I see forever if I'm being honest. I see marriage and a real home, not just an empty penthouse. I see Sunday mornings making breakfast, together and holidays with Tyler and whatever other family we build. I see growing old with someone I actually love, not just tolerate. He looked at her seriously. Is that too much? Am I moving too fast? No, Simone whispered. That's exactly what I see too. It scares me how fast this has happened, but it also feels right. More right than anything has felt in a long time. Then let's keep building it. One day at a time, like we said. No rush, but moving forward together. They kissed, and the kiss deepened into something more. That night, wrapped in each other's arms, they took their relationship to a new level of intimacy. It was tender and passionate, full of the trust they'd been building for months. The next morning, Simone woke up to the smell of coffee and burning toast. She put on Brandon's shirt and walked into the kitchen to find him frantically waving a dish towel at the smoke detector. I was trying to surprise you with breakfast in bed, he said sheepishly. It's not going well. Simone laughed and helped him salvage what they could. They ended up eating scrambled eggs and fruit on the deck, both of them in pajamas, hair messy and eyes bright with happiness. This is my favorite version of you, Simone said. Not the CEO in the expensive suit, but this. Relaxed and real and trying to make me burn toast. This is the version I am with you, Brandon replied. The version I couldn't be with anyone else. They packed up slowly that afternoon, neither wanting the weekend to end. On the drive back to the city, they held hands and talked about introducing Simone to Brandon's mother and planning a trip to Florida. She's going to interrogate you, Brandon warned. Ask you a million questions about your intentions and your family and your life plans. Good. That's what mothers are supposed to do. It means she cares about you. When Brandon dropped Simone off at her apartment, Tyler came out to help carry her bag. So? Tyler asked, grinning. Good weekend? The best, Simone said, hugging her brother. The absolute best. Inside, as she unpacked, Simone found a note Brandon had tucked into her bag. Thank you for the perfect weekend. Thank you for being you. Thank you for letting me love you. Always yours, Brandon. Simone held the note to her chest and smiled. She was falling in love. No, she had already fallen. And for once in her life, she wasn't afraid of where she might land. August brought a heat wave to the city, but it also brought changes that felt like fresh air. Simone had officially completed her first quarter at Hayes Technology, and Carol submitted a glowing review that secured her position in the company even before she finished her degree. Tyler received an offer from Quantum Dynamics for a full-time position starting after his graduation the following spring. And Brandon was more open about his relationship with Simone, introducing her as his girlfriend at company events and social gatherings. One Saturday morning, Brandon picked up both Simone and Tyler early for a surprise he'd been planning for weeks. He'd rented a beach house on the coast for an entire week, giving all three of them a chance to relax and spend time together as a family. A whole week, Tyler said from the back seat of Brandon's car, his eyes wide. Man, Brandon, that's amazing. You've both worked incredibly hard, Brandon said, glancing at Simone with a smile. You deserve a real vacation. Swimming, sleeping late, reading on the beach, whatever you want. No schedules, no stress. The beach house was right on the ocean, a blue and white cottage with wide windows and a deck that led straight to the sand. Inside, it was decorated with coastal charm. Light furniture, beach paintings on the walls, shells displayed in glass jars. "This is paradise," Simone breathed, walking out onto the deck and looking at the waves. Tyler immediately changed into swim trunks and ran toward the water, diving into the waves with the enthusiasm of someone who'd spent too many years studying instead of playing. Brandon and Simone watched him from the deck, both smiling. "He's still a kid at heart," Simone said. "I forget that sometimes. He's had to grow up so fast. This week he gets to just be 20, Brandon said, putting his arm around her. "No responsibilities, no pressure. Same for you." They spent the days in simple pleasures. Swimming in the ocean, building sandcastles, collecting shells, reading books in beach chairs while the sun warmed their skin. They ate fresh seafood at local restaurants and cooked simple meals together in the beach house kitchen. They stayed up late playing board games and watching old movies. One evening, as they sat around a bonfire on the beach, Tyler asked Brandon about growing up poor. "What was it like?" Tyler asked. "I mean, Simone and I had it tough after Mom and Dad died, but we had each other. You said your dad left when you were little." Brandon poked at the fire with a stick, watching the sparks fly up into the dark sky. "It was lonely, mostly. My mom was amazing, but she was always working. I'd come home from school to an empty apartment. I'd make myself dinner, do my homework alone, go to bed before she got home. Weekends, she'd be so tired she'd sleep most of the day." "That sounds really hard," Tyler said. "It was. But it also taught me resilience. And it made me appreciate everything I have now. The success, the money, sure. But mostly the people. Having your sister in my life, having you as part of my family, that means more to me than any business deal or financial achievement." Tyler looked at Simone, then back at Brandon. "You know, before you came along, it was just the two of us against the world. Simone worked herself to exhaustion trying to take care of me, never complaining, never making me feel like a burden. I used to worry she'd never have her own life because she was too busy taking care of mine." "Tyler," Simone said softly. "No, let me finish," Tyler continued. "Brandon, you've given my sister something I couldn't give her. Happiness. Freedom to pursue her own dreams. Someone to share the load with. I'm grateful for that. More grateful than you probably realize." Brandon stood up and walked over to Tyler, pulling him into a hug. "You're a good man, Tyler. Your parents would be incredibly proud of the person you've become." Simone wiped tears from her cheeks, overwhelmed by the love she felt for both of them. Her brother, who she'd raised and who'd grown into such a thoughtful person. And Brandon, who'd come into their lives like a miracle and made everything better. Later that night, after Tyler had gone to bed, Brandon and Simone walked along the beach under the stars. The moon was full, casting silver light across the waves. "I've been thinking about something," Brandon said, stopping to face her. "I want to take the next step with you, Simone. I want to ask you to move in with me." Simone's breath caught. "Move in with you? I know my penthouse isn't exactly homey right now, but we could change that together. Make it a real home. Ours. And Tyler could have his own room for whenever he wants to stay. I want to wake up with you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want to build a life with you, not just see you on dates and weekends. What about people talking? About us working together and living together? Let them talk. I don't care what anyone thinks. The people who matter, like Jeffrey and Carol, they're happy for us. Everyone else's opinion is irrelevant." Brandon took her hands. "Say yes, Simone. Come build a home with me." Simone thought about her small apartment, the place she'd lived since her parents died. It was familiar and safe, but it was also tied to the hardest years of her life. Moving in with Brandon would be a leap forward, a statement that she trusted him and believed in their future together. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I'll move in with you." Brandon lifted her off her feet and spun her around, both of them laughing. When he set her down, he kissed her deeply, and Simone felt certainty settle into her bones. This was right. This was where she was meant to be. The rest of the week passed in a haze of happiness. They told Tyler about the move and he was thrilled, immediately claiming which room would be his in Brandon's penthouse. They made plans for how to redecorate, what furniture to keep and what to replace, how to make the space feel warm and lived in. On their last evening at the beach, Brandon gave Tyler an envelope. "Open it," he said. Inside was a check for $50,000. Tyler's hands shook as he stared at it. "Brandon, I can't accept this. This is too much. It's for your final year of college and to help you get settled after graduation. Apartment deposit, furniture, professional wardrobe, whatever you need. You've earned it, Tyler. You've worked hard and you're about to start an incredible career. Let me help you start it right." Tyler looked at Simone, who nodded. Take it, Ty. Family helps family. Tyler walked over and hugged Brandon tightly. Thank you. For everything. For loving my sister, for helping me, for being the person you are. That night, as they packed up to leave the next morning, Simone stood on the deck one last time, looking at the ocean. Brandon came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. Happy? He asked. Happier than I ever imagined I could be, Simone replied. You've given me everything I'd stopped believing I could have. Love, security, a future that looks bright instead of just survivable. You've given me the same thing. A reason to care about something beyond work. A home instead of just a place to sleep. A family to love. They stood together watching the waves, both of them thinking about how far they'd come. From that Christmas Eve when they'd met to this moment, everything had changed. They'd built something real and lasting. Something that would carry them through whatever came next. Love had bloomed between them, strong and true. And neither of them could imagine life without the other anymore. September arrived, bringing cooler temperatures and the start of a new season. Simone had moved into Brandon's penthouse, and true to their plans, they'd transformed it from a sterile showplace into a real home. They'd added photographs on the walls, comfortable furniture, plants in every room, and personal touches that made the space feel lived in. Tyler visited most weekends, settling into his designated room and treating the place like a second home. He was finishing his final year of college and already planning for his future at Quantum Dynamics. At work, Simone had been promoted to a junior analyst position, a role she'd earned through her exceptional performance. Carol continued to mentor her, and Simone was thriving in her new responsibilities. Everything was perfect. Too perfect, Simone sometimes thought. She kept waiting for something to go wrong, for the other shoe to drop. She'd learned in life that nothing good lasted forever. Her fears came true on a Tuesday afternoon in mid-September. Brandon was in a meeting when his receptionist called Simone's desk. There's someone here asking for Mr. Hayes. She says she's an old friend. Her name is Patricia Donovan. Simone felt her stomach drop. That was the woman who'd humiliated Brandon on Christmas Eve. The woman whose cruelty had led to Brandon and Simone meeting in the first place. I'll handle it, Simone said, trying to keep her voice steady. I'll be right there. Patricia Donovan was even more polished in person than Simone had imagined. She wore an expensive navy blue suit, had perfectly styled blonde hair, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. She was standing in the reception area, looking around with an expression that suggested she was judging everything she saw. Miss Donovan? Simone said, approaching her. I'm Simone Parker, Mr. Hayes's girlfriend, Patricia interrupted, her smile sharp. Yes, I've seen the photos on social media. You're the waitress from that restaurant. How convenient that you ended up working here. Simone kept her voice professional. How can I help you? I need to speak with Brandon. It's important. Personal business. Mr. Hayes is in a meeting. If you'd like to leave a message, I can make sure he gets it. Patricia's eyes narrowed. I'm not leaving a message with the help. Tell Brandon I'm here. He'll want to see me. Simone felt anger flash through her but kept her expression neutral. I'm afraid that's not possible. Mr. Hayes has a full schedule today. If you'd like to make an appointment. Listen, sweetie, Patricia said, her voice dripping with condescension. I don't know what game you're playing, but Brandon and I have history. Real history. Not some fairy tale where the rich man rescues the poor waitress. He'll see me if you tell him I'm here. Before Simone could respond, Brandon emerged from the conference room. He stopped when he saw Patricia, his expression hardening. What are you doing here? He asked, his voice cold in a way Simone had never heard before. Patricia's entire demeanor changed. She smiled warmly and walked toward him. Brandon, I've missed you. I wanted to apologize for how I behaved on Christmas Eve. I was horrible to you and you didn't deserve that. You're right. I didn't deserve that. But I don't need your apology now, 8 months later. What do you really want? Patricia glanced at Simone, then back at Brandon. Can we talk privately? This is personal. Anything you need to say to me, you can say in front of Simone. Patricia's smile faded slightly. Fine. I've been following your relationship on social media. I see she's moved in with you, that you're serious about her. Brandon, I need you to think carefully about what you're doing. This woman worked as a waitress. She has nothing to offer you. No connections, no status, no understanding of the world you live in. She's clearly with you for your money. Simone felt like she'd been slapped. Before she could respond, Brandon stepped closer to Patricia, his voice low and dangerous. Get out. Brandon, please listen. Get. No. And don't ever come back to my company or speak about Simone that way again. Security, Brandon called, and 2 uniformed guards appeared from around the corner. Please escort Ms. Donovan from the building. She's not welcome here. Patricia's face flushed red. You're making a mistake, Brandon. When she shows her true colors and breaks your heart, don't come crying to me. I would never come to you for anything. You showed me exactly who you are last Christmas, and I should thank you. If you hadn't been so cruel that night, I might never have really talked to Simone. You did me a favor by revealing your true character. As the security guards led Patricia out, she shot Simone a look of pure hatred. Simone stood frozen, processing everything that had just happened. Brandon turned to her, his expression softening. Are you okay? I'm fine, Simone said, but her voice shook slightly. I'm sorry. I should have refused to let her in. You did nothing wrong. She showed up uninvited and said terrible things. That's on her, not you. Brandon took Simone's hand. Come on. Let's go to my office. In Brandon's office, Simone sat down heavily in one of the chairs. Did you know she'd been following us on social media? No. I blocked her months ago. She must have been using fake accounts or asking friends to show her. What if she's right, Brandon? What if people think I'm only with you for your money? What if they all think that? Brandon knelt in front of her chair, taking both her hands. Listen to me. I don't care what Patricia thinks. I don't care what anyone thinks. I know why you're with me, and it has nothing to do with money. You loved me before you knew how successful I was. You tried to refuse my help multiple times. You've earned your position at this company through hard work. Anyone who knows you knows that. But people who don't know me don't matter. Simone, I've spent my entire adult life worrying about what people think. About my reputation, my image, my standing in the business community. And you know what? It never made me happy. What makes me happy is you. The life we're building together. Everything else is noise. Simone felt tears slip down her cheeks. I'm so tired of people judging me. Of being seen as less than because I came from poverty. I've worked so hard to prove myself. And you have proven yourself. To everyone who matters. Brandon wiped her tears away gently. Patricia is bitter and small. She sees you happy with me and can't stand it because she threw away her chance. Don't let her poison what we have. Simone took a shaky breath and nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. She just got under my skin. That was her intention. But she failed. You're stronger than she could ever be. That evening as they drove home together, Simone felt drained. The encounter with Patricia had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. All her old insecurities had come flooding back. The fear that she wasn't good enough, that she didn't belong in Brandon's world, that eventually he'd realize he could do better. At home, Brandon ordered takeout and they ate on the couch, watching a movie neither of them paid attention to. Tyler called to check in, and Simone talked to him while Brandon cleaned up the dinner containers. You sound off, Tyler said. What's wrong? Simone told him about Patricia's visit. Tyler was quiet for a moment, then said, Sis, people like that will always exist. People who can't stand to see others happy because they're miserable themselves. But you can't let them win. You and Brandon are solid. Anyone who knows you both can see that. When did you get so wise? Simone asked, smiling despite her tears. I learned from the best. You've always told me to ignore the haters and focus on the people who love me. Time to take your own advice. After they hung up, Simone found Brandon on the balcony looking out at the city lights. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, and he covered her hands with his. I love you, she said. I should have said that before, but I'm saying it now. I love you, Brandon Hayes. Not your money or your status or what you can do for me. Just you. Brandon turned around and pulled her close. I love you too. More than I've ever loved anyone. You're my home, Simone. My family. My future. Don't ever doubt that. They stood together on the balcony, holding each other as the city sparkled below them. Patricia's words still stung, but they couldn't break what Brandon and Simone had built. Their love was too strong, too real, too grounded in mutual respect and genuine affection. Still, Simone couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. That Patricia wouldn't give up so easily. That more obstacles were coming their way. But she also knew something Patricia didn't. She and Brandon were stronger together than anything that could try to tear them apart. And that strength would carry them through whatever challenges lay ahead. The morning after Patricia's unwelcome visit, Simone woke up to find Brandon already awake, sitting on the edge of their bed with his laptop. The early light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. What are you doing up so early? Simone asked, stretching. Damage control, Brandon said, turning to show her his screen. Patricia posted about our encounter yesterday on her social media. She's spinning it like I'm making a mistake and implying that you're using me. Simone sat up quickly, her heart sinking. Let me see. The post was exactly as bad as she'd feared. Patricia had written a long message about how she tried to warn Brandon about gold diggers, and how he'd changed since meeting someone who clearly has ulterior motives. She'd stopped just short of naming Simone directly, but it was obvious who she meant. This is going to make things so much worse, Simone said, her voice tight with anxiety. Everyone is going to see this. Your business associates, my coworkers, everyone. Which is why I'm getting ahead of it, Brandon said calmly. He opened a document and showed it to her. I'm making a public statement. Not about Patricia specifically, but about us. About our relationship and what it means to me. I want everyone to know exactly where I stand. Simone read the statement. It was honest and heartfelt, talking about how they'd met, how Simone had shown him kindness when he needed it most, and how their relationship had developed naturally from friendship to love. He praised her work ethic, her intelligence, and her character. He made it clear that anyone who questioned their relationship didn't know them at all. This is beautiful, Simone said, tears in her eyes. But Brandon, you don't have to do this. You don't have to defend me publicly. Yes, I do. Because I love you and I'm not going to let anyone, especially Patricia, try to tear you down. He closed his laptop and took Simone's hands. I'm tired of caring what people think. I want the world to know that you're the best thing that ever happened to me. And if some people have a problem with that, they can remove themselves from my life. That afternoon, Brandon posted his statement on all his social media platforms and emailed it to the company. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Messages of support poured in from colleagues, employees, business partners, and even strangers who were moved by the story. Several people shared their own experiences with finding love in unexpected places. Carol sent Simone a text. Ignore the noise. Everyone here knows how hard you work and how much you've earned your place. Patricia is just a bitter person trying to make herself relevant. Don't give her that power. Jeffrey called Brandon directly. That was well done. Very well done. You're showing people who you really are, and that's powerful. Patricia's post is already being torn apart in the comments. People see through her. But not everyone was supportive. A few business associates reached out with concerns, suggesting that Brandon's public display might be seen as unprofessional. One board member from a company he partnered with suggested that Brandon should keep his personal life more private. Brandon's response to each of them was the same. I appreciate your concern, but I'm not interested in hiding who I love or pretending my personal life doesn't exist. If that's a problem for you, I understand, and we can discuss ending our business relationship. Not one person took him up on that offer. The next weekend, Brandon surprised Simone with another gesture. He'd organized a small gathering at their penthouse, inviting close friends and colleagues to officially celebrate their relationship. Not an engagement party, he clarified when Simone looked nervous, just a chance for the people they cared about to come together. The party was intimate and warm. Jeffrey and Patricia Mills came, as did Carol and several other colleagues from Hayes Technology. Tyler brought his girlfriend, a sweet engineering student named Nicole he'd been seeing for a few months. Even Brandon's mother, Margaret, flew in from Florida, eager to finally meet the woman her son couldn't stop talking about. Margaret Hayes was a small woman with Brandon's eyes and a warm smile. She pulled Simone into a tight hug the moment they met. So you're the one who's made my son human again, Margaret said, holding Simone at arm's length to study her. He's talked about you nonstop for months. I was starting to think he'd made you up. Mom, Brandon said, embarrassed. I'm just being honest. Simone, I want to thank you. Brandon has been alone for too long, buried in work and afraid to let anyone in. You've changed that. You've given him a life beyond spreadsheets and board meetings. He's given me just as much, Simone said. Maybe more. As the evening went on, Simone relaxed. These were good people who genuinely cared about her and Brandon. There was no judgment, no suspicion, just happiness that two people had found each other. At one point, Jeffrey stood up and clinked his glass to get everyone's attention. I want to make a toast. I've known Brandon for 15 years. I've watched him build an empire, achieve every professional goal he set for himself. But I've never seen him truly happy until Simone came into his life. To Brandon and Simone. May your love continue to grow, and may you always remember that the best things in life aren't measured in dollars or deals, but in the people we love and who love us back. Everyone raised their glasses and cheered. Brandon pulled Simone close and kissed her forehead. Later, after most of the guests had left, Margaret sat with Simone on the balcony while Brandon and Tyler cleaned up inside. "Can I tell you something?" Margaret asked. "Of course." "When Brandon's father left, I was 24 years old with a 6-year-old son and no money. I worked myself to exhaustion trying to provide for him. I missed so many moments of his childhood because I was always working. I carry guilt about that even now. I'm sure Brandon understands." "Let me finish," Margaret said gently. "What I'm trying to say is that I see myself in you, Simone. Working multiple jobs, sacrificing everything for family, pushing yourself beyond what's reasonable because you love someone more than you love your own comfort. I know how hard that is. And I know the strength it takes." Simone felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. That means a lot. Brandon is lucky to have you. But more importantly, you're lucky to have each other. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't deserve him or this life. You've earned everything you have through hard work and good character. That's more than most people can say." Inside, Brandon had pulled out his guitar, something Simone hadn't known he owned. He started playing and singing softly, an old love song that made everyone stop and listen. His voice was untrained but genuine, full of emotion. When he finished, everyone applauded. Tyler whistled and shouted, "I didn't know you could sing." "I can't really," Brandon said laughing. "But tonight seemed like a good time to try." As the party wound down and the last guests left, Simone stood in the middle of the penthouse, looking around at the evidence of the evening. Empty glasses, rumpled cushions, a few forgotten napkins. The apartment looked lived in and loved in. It looked like a home. Brandon came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Happy. So happy," Simone said. "Thank you for tonight. For everything you said in your statement. For standing up for us." "Always," Brandon promised. "From now until forever. I'll always stand up for us." That night as they lay in bed, Simone thought about how far they'd come. From that chance meeting on Christmas Eve to this moment, surrounded by people who loved them and supported their relationship. Patricia's attempts to cause trouble had failed. In fact, they'd made Brandon and Simone's relationship stronger, more public, more real. "I have something for you," Brandon said suddenly. He got out of bed and retrieved a small box from his nightstand. Simone's heart started racing. "Brandon? It's not what you think." "Well, not yet anyway." He opened the box to reveal a delicate gold necklace with a pendant shaped like a star. "This was my grandmother's. She gave it to my mother and my mother gave it to me to give to someone special. I want you to have it." Simone felt tears stream down her face as Brandon fastened the necklace around her neck. "It's beautiful. It represents something my grandmother used to say. That everyone needs a guiding star, something to light their way home. You're my guiding star, Simone. You led me home when I was lost." They held each other in the darkness, both knowing that whatever challenges came next, they'd face them together. Their love had been tested and proven strong. And nothing, not Patricia's bitterness or anyone else's judgment, could break what they'd built. November arrived with cold winds and the promise of winter. A year had passed since that fateful Christmas Eve when Brandon and Simone first met. As the anniversary approached, Brandon had been planning something special, working with Jeffrey and Tyler to pull off a surprise that would mark not just their beginning, but their future together. Simone had noticed Brandon being secretive lately, whispering phone calls and mysterious meetings, but she assumed he was just busy with year-end business affairs. She'd been occupied herself, finishing her last semester of classes before graduating with her business degree. The past year had been transformative. She'd gone from working 2 jobs and barely surviving to thriving in her career, living with the man she loved, and watching her brother prepare for his own successful future. Tyler had graduated with honors in May and started his position at Quantum Dynamics immediately. He'd found an apartment near his office but still came to stay with Brandon and Simone most weekends. Nicole, his girlfriend, was often with him and the 4 of them had become a tight unit. On December 23rd, Brandon told Simone he wanted to take her somewhere special for dinner. "Where are we going?" Simone asked as they got dressed for the evening. "It's a surprise," Brandon said, adjusting his tie in the mirror. He wore a sharp charcoal gray suit, and Simone noticed his hands were shaking slightly. "Are you nervous about something?" she asked. "No. Just excited." Simone wore a red dress that Brandon had bought her the previous week. It was elegant and festive, perfect for the holiday season. As they drove through the city, she watched the Christmas lights decorating buildings and storefronts, remembering how sad she'd felt last year at this time. How exhausted and hopeless she'd been, working herself to death with no end in sight. When Brandon pulled up in front of Bellissimo restaurant, Simone gasped. "We're going back?" "We're going back," Brandon confirmed, smiling. Where it all started. Inside, the restaurant looked exactly as it had a year ago. The same decorations, the same Christmas music, the same warm atmosphere. But this time, Simone walked in as Brandon's girlfriend, not as his waitress. The host led them to a table, and Simone realized it was the exact same table where she'd served Brandon that night. The table where he'd sat alone and humiliated while Patricia walked out on him. Brandon, Simone said, her voice thick with emotion. This is perfect. Their server approached and Simone recognized her. It was Maria, one of the other waitresses who'd worked with Simone last year. Simone, Maria said, hugging her. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. You look amazing. Thank you. How have you been? Good. Really good. Actually, I have you to thank for that. After you left, the manager told us what Mr. Hayes had done, how generous he'd been. It inspired him. He raised everyone's wages and started offering benefits. Several of us have been able to quit our second jobs. Simone looked at Brandon with surprise. You did that? Brandon shrugged. I made a suggestion to the owner. Told him that taking care of employees leads to better service and lower turnover. He was smart enough to listen. After Maria took their drink orders and left, Simone reached across the table and took Brandon's hand. A year ago, I was serving your table and feeling sorry for you because some horrible woman had rejected you. I never imagined that a year later, we'd be here together like this. I think about that night all the time, Brandon said. How close I came to just going home, to missing out on meeting you. If Patricia had been even slightly less cruel, if I'd left right after she did, our paths might never have crossed. I guess we should thank her in a way. I already did. I sent her a message last week. Thanked her for showing me her true character and making it possible for me to meet you. She didn't respond. They laughed together, then ordered dinner. The conversation flowed easily as it always did between them. They talked about Tyler's success at work, about Simone's upcoming graduation, about Brandon's plans to expand his company's charity programs. After dinner, Maria brought out chocolate cake, the same dessert Simone had served Brandon a year ago. On the house, she said with a knowing smile. Chef's specialty. Simone and Brandon shared the cake, feeding each other bites and smiling at the memory. Then as they finished, Brandon stood up. Simone, can you come with me for a moment? He led her through the restaurant to the private event space in the back. When he opened the door, Simone gasped. The room was filled with everyone important in their lives. Tyler and Nicole. Jeffrey and Patricia Mills. Margaret Hayes, Brandon's mother. Carol from work. Dr. Chin from Quantum Dynamics. Maria and several other staff members from the restaurant. Even the manager who'd employed Simone last year. They all stood smiling, watching as Brandon led Simone to the center of the room. Soft music started playing, the same song that had been on the restaurant speakers the night they met. Brandon took both of Simone's hands and looked into her eyes. A year ago tonight, I was sitting alone in this restaurant, convinced I was destined to be lonely forever. I'd accepted that success was all I'd have, that real connection was something other people experienced, not me. And then you brought me chocolate cake and reminded me that kindness exists, that good people exist, that I was worth more than how Patricia had treated me. Tears were already streaming down Simone's face. Brandon continued, You've transformed my life in every way. You've made my house a home. You've given me a family. You've shown me what it means to be loved completely and unconditionally. Every day with you is a gift I never take for granted. He released one of her hands and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Then he got down on one knee, and Simone heard gasps and murmurs from their friends and family. Simone Parker, you are the most remarkable person I've ever known. You're strong, kind, intelligent, and beautiful inside and out. I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you've made me. Will you marry me? He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring. A perfect diamond set in white gold, elegant without being ostentatious. Exactly Simone's style. Simone couldn't speak. She could only nod, tears blurring her vision, her heart so full she thought it might burst. Yes, she finally managed to say. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Brandon stood up and slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her as everyone applauded and cheered. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. Tyler rushed over and hugged them both. Welcome to the family officially, he said to Brandon. Though honestly, you've been family for a long time already. Margaret embraced Simone next. My new daughter, she said, holding Simone's face in her hands. I'm so happy. So very happy. The next hour was a blur of hugs and congratulations and champagne toasts. Jeffrey gave a speech about watching Brandon transform from a workaholic loner into a man who understood what truly mattered. Tyler told stories about how Simone had raised him and how grateful he was that she'd found someone who treated her like the treasure she was. Carol pulled Simone aside at one point. "I want you to know something. When Brandon first asked me to consider you for the internship, I was skeptical. I thought maybe he was doing a favor for someone he was interested in. But from day one you proved yourself through your own merit. You've earned every opportunity you've received. Don't ever forget that." As the evening wound down and people started to leave, Brandon and Simone stood together in the same spot where they'd first really talked a year ago. The event space was quieter now, just family remaining: Tyler and Nicole, Margaret, Jeffrey and Patricia. "I have one more surprise," Brandon said. He pulled out an envelope and handed it to Tyler. "For you and Nicole." Tyler opened it and his eyes widened. Inside were 2 tickets to Paris and a reservation confirmation for a hotel. "Brandon, this is too much." "It's not too much. It's a thank you for sharing your sister with me. And for trusting me with her heart. You and Nicole deserve a real vacation. Go to Paris, see the Eiffel Tower, eat amazing food and don't worry about anything. Just enjoy being young and in love." Nicole was crying and Tyler looked overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say except thank you. For everything you've done for both of us." Brandon hugged him. "You're my brother now. This is what family does." After everyone left, it was just Brandon and Simone in the empty event space. They sat together at a table, holding hands, both emotionally exhausted but blissfully happy. "How long have you been planning this?" Simone asked. "Since September. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to bring us full circle, back to where we started, and show you how much has changed and how much it means to me. It was perfect. Everything about tonight was perfect." Simone looked at her ring, watching it sparkle in the light. "I love you so much, Brandon." "I love you too. More than I have words to express." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, then Simone said, "Do you remember what you told me that first night? You said you'd been ready to give up on humanity, but I'd reminded you that kind people still exist." "I remember every word of that conversation." "Well, you reminded me of something too. You reminded me that good things can happen when you least expect them. That not all men are selfish or cruel. That sometimes fairy tales do come true. Just maybe not in the way we imagined." Brandon kissed her hand, right above where her engagement ring sat. "This is just the beginning, you know. We have a whole lifetime ahead of us. Decades of Christmas Eves and anniversaries. Children maybe. Growing old together. Building something lasting and real." "I can't wait," Simone said. "For all of it. Every moment, every challenge, every joy. As long as we're together." They left the restaurant hand in hand, walking out into the cold December night. Snow was beginning to fall just like it had a year ago. But this time neither of them was alone. This time they had each other. They had family, friends, careers they loved, and a future that shined bright with possibility. As they climbed into Brandon's car, Simone took one last look at the restaurant. At the place where a chance encounter had changed everything. Where a simple act of kindness had led to the greatest love of her life. "Thank you," she whispered to the universe, to fate, to whatever force had brought them together. Brandon heard her and smiled. "Thank you," he echoed. "For everything." And as they drove home through the snowy streets, past houses decorated with lights and families gathered for the holidays, both of them felt the same thing: gratitude. Pure, overwhelming gratitude for the journey that had brought them here, and excitement for all the adventures still to come. A year ago, Brandon had been sitting alone in a restaurant on the worst Christmas Eve of his life. Now he was engaged to the love of his life, surrounded by family, with more happiness than he'd ever thought possible. A year ago, Simone had been serving tables and working herself to exhaustion, barely surviving, with no hope for anything better. Now she was wearing an engagement ring, living in a beautiful home, succeeding in a career she loved, and about to marry a man who treated her like a queen. It was proof that life could change in an instant. That one moment of kindness could ripple outward and transform everything. That hope and love were always worth believing in, even when things seemed darkest. As they pulled into their building's garage and headed up to their penthouse, Simone and Brandon were already planning. Their wedding. Their future. The family they'd continue to build together. The story that had begun with chocolate cake and compassion on Christmas Eve had led them here. To love, to commitment, to forever. And both of them knew with absolute certainty that this was only the beginning of their happily ever after. The end. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us exactly where we need to be. If Brandon and Simone's love story touched your heart, Please subscribe to this channel and share this video with someone who needs to believe in hope and second chances. Leave a comment telling us what part of their journey moved you most. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories like this one to life.